The man whose name is on every McDonald's didn't start McDonald's. He stole it. When he first walked into a McDonald's, he was 52. He had diabetes. His hands hurt from arthritis. And he was driving around the country trying to sell milkshake machines that nobody wanted. By any honest measure, his best years were behind him. 20 years later, he was worth $600 million, and his face was on the cover of Time magazine. And the two brothers who actually built the thing, who invented it, drew it, ran it for years before he ever showed up. They died with their names scrubbed off the company so completely that McDonald's, to this day, celebrates the wrong birthday on purpose. So here's what I want you to keep in the back of your head, because it pays off at the end. The brothers came first. They built everything. The famous guy showed up late, and he took the name. How that happened is one of the coldest business stories you'll ever hear. And it kicks off with a single milkshake order that didn't make any sense. Before anyone took anything from the brothers, you should know who they actually were, because these were not two simple guys who got played. If anything, it was the opposite. The two of them invented something the whole world would go on to copy. They basically invented fast food itself. And the man whose name ends up on every sign? At this point in the story, he's 1,000 miles away, selling kitchen gadgets out of his car, with no idea they even exist. Their names were Richard and Maurice McDonald. Everybody just called them Dick and Mac. Sons of poor Irish immigrants, they drove out to California in the 1930s chasing a better life, like half the country was doing back then. The better life took its time. They opened a movie theater and it flopped. They ran a hot dog stand. Then they opened a drive-in restaurant with waiters on roller skates and a menu as long as your arm. And that one finally started making money. And then one night, Dick sat down to go through the receipts, and he noticed something strange. "Mac, come here," he said. "We've got 100 things on this menu, and people are basically only paying for one of them." "Which one?" Mac asked. "Hamburgers. 8 out of every $10. The rest of this stuff, we're cooking it for nothing." Mac stopped. "So we're paying a whole kitchen full of cooks to make food almost nobody orders?" And right there, the two of them came up with an idea that any restaurant owner back then would have called insane. What if they threw out the entire menu, everything, and just sold hamburgers? So that's what they did. In 1948, they shut the place down, fired the waiters, dumped the plates, dumped the forks, and reopened selling almost nothing. Burgers, fries, shakes, a soda, a coffee. You walked up to a window, and your food was already made, sitting there, waiting for you. No waiter, no tip, no 20-minute wait. But the part that actually mattered was behind the counter. And this is where the brothers go from smart to genius. One night, they took every piece of equipment out of the kitchen, walked onto a tennis court, got down on their hands and knees, and drew the whole kitchen on the ground in chalk. Every grill, every counter, every single step a worker would take to make one burger. Then they walked through it in their heads, found the steps that wasted time, erased it, and drew the whole thing again. Two grown men crawling around a tennis court in the dark, arguing about where to put the ketchup. By sunrise, they had designed a kitchen that didn't run like a restaurant. It ran like a car factory, an assembly line, except the thing rolling off the end was a 15-cent hamburger, handed to you in 30 seconds, exactly the same every single time. People had never seen anything like it. The line ran around the block. The brothers got rich. A big house up on a hill, 2 matching Cadillacs, the whole picture. And they were happy. Genuinely, completely happy. That happiness is the crack everything falls through. Because 1,000 miles away, there was a man who had never felt happy or satisfied with anything in his life. and he was about to get a phone call about milkshake machines. Ray Kroc had been losing for 30 years, and he'd gotten weirdly good at it. By 1954, he was 52 years old. Arthritis in his hands, diabetes, and 3 decades behind him as a traveling salesman. 17 of those years he spent selling paper cups, knocking on doors, smiling a big salesman smile that never once turned into the fortune he was sure he had coming. He'd already taken his big swing, too. Back in 1938, he went into debt to buy the national rights to a thing called the multi-mixer, a machine that could spin 5 milkshakes at once. He bet everything on it. He was sure it would sweep the country. It did not sweep the country. Turns out almost no restaurant on earth needs to make 5 milkshakes at the same time. Cheaper copies showed up, and the big bet of Ray's life slowly died in motel rooms and diner parking lots. This was a guy circling the drain at the end of his career. And then his secretary handed him an order that made no sense. "Ray, a place out in California just reordered," she told him. "San Bernardino." "How many machines?" 8. 8? One restaurant? That's 40 milkshakes going at the same time. There's no place on earth that needs 40 milkshakes at once. Something's wrong with this order. They ordered 8. I'm flying out there. I have to see this myself. So Ray flew clear across the country to stand in a parking lot and stare at a hamburger stand. And what he saw rearranged something in his brain. The line was huge, and it never stopped moving. Behind the counter, the kitchen ran like a machine. Food out in seconds. No mess, no mistakes. Money coming in like a tap somebody forgot to shut off. Ray had walked into thousands of restaurants in his life. He had never seen one that worked like this. Now here's the difference between Ray Kroc and every other customer standing in that line. The brothers looked at their restaurant and saw one perfect restaurant. Ray looked at it and saw 10,000 of them. One on every corner in America. The brothers built the best burger stand in the country. Ray had spent 30 years walking into every other burger stand in the country. So the second he saw this one, he knew in his gut it could wipe out all the rest. The next morning, he walked up to the brothers with a smile and a pitch. And the fight between the men who built the thing and the man who wanted to own it started. Like a lot of bad deals do, with a friendly handshake. "Gentlemen, this is the best run restaurant I have ever seen," Ray told them. "So let me ask the obvious question. Why is there only one of them?" "We tried copying it, Ray," Dick said. "Opened a few franchises. It's a headache. Every owner cuts corners. The quality falls apart. And honestly, we're doing just fine right here." "Just fine," Ray said. "You built something that could be on every corner in America, and you want to settle for just fine?" "And who runs all that, Ray?" Mac asked. "You?" "Yes. Let me be the one who takes it national." So in 1954, they signed a contract. And you need to understand this contract because it explains everything that happens next. Ray got the right to open McDonald's franchises across the country, but the brothers, careful as ever, kept a death grip on the actual system. Here's how the money split, and it matters. Ray collected 1.9% of every new restaurant's sales. And out of that thin little slice, the brothers took 0.5% right off the top. For doing nothing. Then there was one clause that turned out to be a noose. Ray couldn't change anything about how a McDonald's worked, not one thing, without both brothers signing off in writing. Want to change the fries? Write a letter to California and wait. In 1955, Ray opened his first McDonald's outside Chicago, and he threw himself at it like a man who knew this was his last shot at the big money. He sold franchises to his golf buddies, then to their friends, and the golden arches started popping up across the Midwest. more every month. From the outside, Ray Kroc finally looked like a winner. He wasn't. He was quietly going broke, because that contract he'd been so desperate to sign was choking him. Let me put the math in front of you, because the whole problem lives right here. Say one of his restaurants sells $100 of burgers. Ray gets $1.90 of that. Out of that, he hands 50 cents straight to the brothers. He's got $1.40 left. And out of that $1.40, he has to pay for the trainers, the inspectors, the gas, the paperwork, all of it. On a 15-cent burger, $1.40 doesn't go far. So Ray was building this giant empire with his own 2 aching hands. And at the end of every month, his own pocket was basically empty. By 1956, the man whose name would one day hang on 40,000 buildings was nearly bankrupt. Watching the empire he built make money for everyone but him. And then a quiet, forgettable-looking money guy walked into his life and told him one sentence that didn't just save McDonald's. It rewrote how you build an empire out of nothing. His name was Harry Sonneborn. He came from the finance side of a frozen custard company. And when he looked at Ray Kroc's books, he didn't see a burger business in trouble. He saw a man who had completely misread what business he was even in. "Ray, you're broke," he said. "You know that, right? I've got new restaurants opening every month." "Right, and you're making pennies on every one of them. You will never get rich selling 15-cent hamburgers, not in 100 years. Then what am I supposed to do, Harry?" "Stop thinking you're in the hamburger business, Ray. You're not. You're in the real estate business." And in that one sentence, the whole machine roared to life. Let me slow this all the way down, because this is the smartest money move in the entire story. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The old way McDonald's made money was simple. A restaurant sells burgers, Ray gets a tiny cut of the burgers. Slow, small, and only after somebody actually buys food. Sonneborn flipped the whole thing on its head. Instead of being a burger company that scrapes a few cents off each sale, McDonald's would become a landlord that just happens to sell burgers. Here's how that works in plain terms. Normally, if you want to open a restaurant, you go find the land yourself and you pay the rent yourself. Sonneborn said no. McDonald's goes and gets the land first. McDonald's buys it or locks up a long lease on it. Then McDonald's builds the restaurant on that land. And then McDonald's rents the whole thing back to the franchisee at a nice markup. So now the franchisee isn't just handing Ray a slice of his burgers, he's paying Ray rent every month. Same as clockwork. Doesn't matter if he sells 1,000,000 burgers or 10. Sell 1,000,000 burgers, you pay rent. Sell 0 burgers, you still pay rent. Harry had basically invented a faucet that only drips one direction, toward Ray. And this fixed 2 huge problems at the same time, which is the scary part. Problem 1 was cash flow. That's just a fancy way of saying money actually landing in your pocket, on time, every month. Burger royalties dripped in slow and unreliable. Rent shows up like clockwork the day the lease is signed, before the place has sold a single fry. All of a sudden, Ray had a steady river of money coming in. Problem 2, and this is the part Ray loved, was control. Because Ray wasn't just the brand anymore, he was the landlord. And what can a landlord do? Throw you out. So if a franchisee got sloppy, let the quality slide, ignored the rules, Ray didn't just pull his franchise. He could take the building right out from under him, run it our way, or lose the roof over your head. And by the way, this is still how McDonald's makes most of its money today. Most people think McDonald's is a burger company. It isn't really. It's one of the biggest landlords on the planet that uses hamburgers to cover the rent. The company is sitting on something like $38 billion worth of land. That's about 99% of everything it owns. The burgers were almost never the point. The dirt under the burgers was the point. So the next time someone tells you McDonald's makes the best fries in the world, technically what they make is the best rent in the world. The fries are just there to keep the tenants busy. So in 1956, they set up a separate company just to buy land and collect rent. And Ray Kroc, flat broke 6 months earlier, was now holding a money printer in one hand and a loaded gun in the other. 6 months earlier, this man couldn't make payroll. Now he owned the land, the buildings, and everyone standing on them. Funny what one sentence from a custard accountant can do. And the warm, friendly, hungry salesman who'd charmed two brothers with a handshake started, very quietly, turning into something colder. Because the moment Ray understood he was sitting on the most valuable pile of real estate in the country, there was exactly one thing standing between him and owning all of it: a contract. And two happy brothers out in California, still holding the leash. By 1961, Ray wanted all of it, and those 50 cents on every $100, still going to two men who in his mind did nothing but sit in California and say no to his letters, had turned into something close to hate. So he picked up the phone and asked the only question that mattered. "Name your number," he said, "for all of it. The name, the system, the arches, everything. What does it take for you to walk away completely?" "You're serious," Dick said. "Name it." $2.7 million, Mac said. "A clean million each, after taxes." Ray went quiet for a second. "Done. $2.7 million. Call it $29 million in today's money. For the whole company, forever." One problem. Ray Kroc didn't have $2.7 million. He didn't have anything close. So Sonneborn went out and worked his magic again and borrowed it. A brutal loan from a group of insurance companies, terms so heavy Ray would be paying it off for years. But Ray signed. Because here's the thing he understood that the brothers didn't. He wasn't buying a burger chain for $2.7 million. He was buying the most valuable real estate machine in the country, and at that price, it was a steal. The brothers sold the future for $1 million each. Ray borrowed against that exact future and bought the whole thing. They say he sat in his office afterward, looked at the signed papers, and muttered that he was going to open a McDonald's right across the street from the brothers and run them into the ground. He wasn't joking. Because in the deal, the brothers had asked to keep one thing: their very first restaurant, the original, the one in San Bernardino where they'd crawled around a tennis court drawing the kitchen in chalk. Ray said fine, but Ray now owned the name. So the two men who invented McDonald's were suddenly, legally, not allowed to call their own restaurant McDonald's. They had to climb up, pull their own name off their own building, and rename it the Big M. And then Ray Kroc, exactly like he promised, opened a brand new company, McDonald's, 1 block away, and crushed it. The Big M, the original, the place where the whole idea was born. The restaurant built by the two men who started all of it. It withered in the shadow of the empire it created and closed for good. And that's the loop I asked you to keep in the back of your head. He didn't steal a wallet. He stole something a lot worse. Here's the coldest detail in the whole story, and it's completely true. For the rest of his life, whenever Ray Kroc told the story of McDonald's, he said the company started in 1955, the year he opened his first store. Not 1940, when Dick and Mac opened the original. Not 1948, when the brothers invented the system the entire fast food world would copy. To this day, the company officially dates its birth from the year Ray showed up, like the 15 years before him, and the two men who built everything he got rich on just never happened. He didn't only take the company, he took the credit. He erased them. The brothers walked away with $1 million each, and for a while they said they were happy with the deal. And maybe, that day, they were. But there's a second number that haunts this whole thing. By some accounts, there was a handshake promise on top of the cash that the brothers would keep a tiny royalty, around 1% of the company's sales, forever. It never made it into the written contract, and 1% of McDonald's, stacked up over the next 50 years, would be worth billions. A fortune so big it makes the $2 million they took look like loose change. Was that promise ever really made? Nobody can prove it either way. What we know for sure is the brothers never saw a cent of it. And Ray? Ray Kroc died in 1984, worth around $600 million. Remembered as one of the great American visionaries. His name on every building. His version of the story set in stone as the official truth. A man who showed up at 52 with a trunk full of milkshake machines nobody wanted had won so completely that he didn't just beat the brothers, he replaced them. So what was he, really? A visionary who saw a future two comfortable men were too satisfied to chase, and turned out to be right about every bit of it? Or a salesman who found another man's invention, talked his way inside, and then walked off with the name, the company, the credit, and the history, leaving the men who built it with a check and a blank space where their legacy should be? The honest answer is he was both, at the exact same time. And that's the real reason those golden arches became the most recognized symbol on the planet. And the reason that, standing right behind them, there are two names almost nobody remembers.